Hello everybody, Fran here, and today I'm going to be going over the Week 12 remote learning for A-level history. Now, as you should have learnt last week, coursework is divided into what we call two themes. One of those themes is looking at anti-Semitism in the German government and how German people interacted with their government. The second theme is about anti-Semitic press and literature and anti-Semitic violence. Now, when I've had people in for coursework support sessions, what I've been saying is essentially when we say themes, we mean essay. So when it comes to coursework, I want you to be thinking, I'm doing two essays here. I'm going to do an essay on anti-Semitism in the government and how German people interact with the government. I'm then going to do a second essay on anti-Semitism in the press and literature, anti-Semitic violence. It is in reality a bit more complex than that, but in terms of where we are, in terms of the situation we're in with remote learning and the fact we are almost breaking up for the summer, the easiest way for me to explain to you what we mean by two themes is two essays. This week then we're going to be looking at the first of these two essays, if you like. We're going to be looking at anti-Semitism in the government and how German people are interacting with their government, what they think about their government in relation to anti-Semitism. Before we start doing any research, doing any learning, the first thing we are going to do is get ourselves organised. So the first task looks quite extensive, is actually quite simple, is to download each of the documents and to save them into the personal research folder that you created last week. The first document is a sheet that you are going to fill in whenever you do research from a book. And as you'll see when you open the document, it's all set up ready for you just to fill in your notes of what you found. The second document is quite similar, but this is a sheet you're going to fill in when you're using the internet. So you'll notice it's quite a similar document with just a few alterations, but whenever you're researching using the internet, you're going to record what you find on the second document. The third document I'm going to talk to you about at the end in particular is a live research tracker. It's a document that will, especially in the context of remote learning, allow you to have an indication of where you are versus where you should be, essentially. But I'm not going to say too much about that because I'm going to mention it at the end. When you click on the documents, you'll realise they are read-only versions at the moment. I took the editing facility off because I was scared that somebody might start typing into the document, which is the live version that everybody can see. So I've took editing off, which means you need to download the document completely and then save it up onto your OneDrive. At that point, you should be able to edit it. So task 1, download the documents, save them into your personal research folder on OneDrive. In terms of the rest of lesson 1 then, we're going to start our research. Now, as you should have come across in lesson 2 of last week's work, the period we look at of German history can be divided into 4 time periods: pre-unification, Kaiser, Weimar and Nazi Germany. Obviously then the maths doesn't start adding up at this point because we've got 4 time periods and 3 lessons. So the rest of lesson 1 is going to look at pre-unification and the Kaiser period. Lesson 2 will be Weimar, lesson 3 will be the Nazi period. Task 2 and task 3 are the same. You are using Alan's YouTube video to make notes on firstly the pre-unification period, secondly the Kaiser period in relation to anti-Semitism in the government and how German people are engaging with their government. These activities need to be completed on your internet research sheet. Please don't use a new document, please don't write it out by hand, please use the documents we provided because they will be beneficial later down the line. And we have also given you bullet points to help you out in terms of understanding what you need to write when making notes. I would recommend taking the bullet points that are on the sheet or on the screen now, and I would copy and paste them into your internet research sheet before you hit play on any video. The final task is getting you to take an event that is covered in the videos and to look at it in more detail. So what you're going to do is pick out an anti-Semitic individual or an organisation that Alan has identified in his video, and you are going to conduct further research. And to do that, you are going to use 2 different websites. That will mean by the end of task 4, for the anti-Semitic individual or organisation you've decided to look at, you'll have notes from Alan's video, and then you will have notes from 2 other websites, giving you 3 sources of information overall. Again, these notes should be completed on the internet research sheet, and every new website should have a new box. When you open the internet research sheet, what I mean by a new box should become quite evident. But essentially, week 1, lesson 1, even not week 1, is downloading the documents and getting organised, and then completing these tasks that will give you some understanding of anti-Semitism in the government and how German people reacted to that in terms of the pre-unification period and the Kaiser period of Germany. Lesson 2 starts the same. Task 1, we're going to watch the next bit of Alan's video, which covers Weimar Germany, and make notes in the internet research sheet. And again, there's some subheadings of things you need to be looking out for. Task 2 is a little bit different. So far, we have only done research using the internet, so we're going to introduce book research. Beyond having a YouTube channel, Alan also has a textbook. As if things couldn't get any better, Alan has a published book on anti-Semitism in Germany, in Weimar Germany and Nazi Germany only. So we're going to use that book to help us do some research. If you've been in for a coursework support session, you should have a physical copy of that book. If you've not been in yet, that's absolutely fine, because what I have done is I have scanned all the pages in and I will attach it to the email I send you with the work. So whether you've been into college or not, you're going to have access to page 8 to 36 of Alan's textbook. For task 2, there are a list of topics within Weimar Germany that are relevant to theme 1, essay 1, anti-Semitism in the government and how German people interacted with it. You are going to pick 2 from that list, any 2 of your choice, and you are going to do more research on those 2 bullet points. And this is going to be recorded in the book research sheet. You'll notice there's a bit more information you need at the top of the research sheet for when using a book, so I will make sure you are provided with that information. So lesson 2, watching Alan's video to get a big picture of what's going on, and then we're going to use Alan's book to look at 2 bullet points in detail. I feel quite inadequate now, I've got no video or book to throw your way, I'm sorry. Lesson 3 then is looking at the Nazi period. What does the Nazi government change and how do German people respond to that? Task 1 is like the other 2 lessons. You are going to use Alan's YouTube video to make notes on the internet research sheet. 2 bullet points are provided. Alan divides this section of his video into legislation before the war and legislation during the war. So I would keep to that division when making your notes also. Task 2 is taking one of the laws passed before the war and using Alan's textbook to look at that law in a little bit more detail. Again, if you've not got the book because you've not been into college yet, I have scanned in those pages for you to use. Task 3 is looking at the legislation during the war, and you're going to use the internet to do some extra research on one of those 3 laws. That will mean that by the end of task 1, 2 and 3, you've looked at all legislation briefly using Alan's video. You've looked at one law before the war in detail using Alan's book, and you've looked at one law during the war using the internet, so you've got more detail on that law as well. The final task is going to be reflecting on where you are in terms of your research and where you need to head going forward. And what we're going to do, what we're going to use to look at that is the live research tracker that I mentioned earlier. So here is a screenshot of the live research tracker. Now you will notice that all of the events you have looked at across the week are bullet pointed in the no research column at the moment. Once you have done some research on any of those bullet points, so that could be using Alan's YouTube video, you are going to move it across into the basic information column. So ultimately by the end of this week, all of those bullet points should be transferred across into the basic information column. Now the question at this point should be, how do I get those bullet points from basic information to detailed information? What is the difference between the two? The answer to that is always it depends, but kind of as a rule of thumb, I think the easiest way to approach this is, once you have got information on a bullet point from 3 different sources, it can go in the detailed information column. That will mean this week there's only going to be one bullet point that you're able to put in the detailed information column. And it's going to be whichever anti-Semitic individual or organisation you have researched in lesson 1. Whilst you will have looked at some of these bullet points in more detail this week, the chances are you will have only used 2 sources. You'll have used the video from Alan's YouTube channel, and you will have probably just used his book or a different internet page. At that point, it needs to stay in the basic information column because I don't want it to be moved across until you've used 3 different sources. Now, it's going to be the case that some of these won't move for a while, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, just kind of rule of thumb, once you've got 3 different sources researching any of those bullet points, the bullet point can go into the detailed information column. In terms of timescales, a lot of these sort of research that will get these bullet points into the detailed information column will happen over the summer, but I'll be talking to you about that more the closer we get to the summer holidays. At that point then, that is everything for week 12. With this being coursework, with this being a unit we've not studied before, and due to context we're doing remotely, please make sure that any questions you have, no matter how small the question seems, no matter how perhaps silly the question seems, make sure you're emailing your teacher. Coursework, as Alan said, should be your best mark in A-level history, but the only way that can happen is if along this journey you are asking your teacher anything that you don't understand. So please email us, but apart from that, have a lovely week, and I will be in contact for the official sort of final week of remote learning of this term.
Big thank you to Fran for all that lovely work that she's given to you. As Fran says, coursework is really, really important. I do think this is not only a really, really important, but a really interesting topic, and hopefully that will encourage you to want to find out more and to go and investigate and do your independent research. So really important stepping stone, and as Fran, to reiterate what Fran is saying, make sure you are contacting members of the history staff and asking questions and getting any help that you do. Watch those videos carefully, read that wonderful book carefully, and make sure that you have everything that you need. So again, big thank you to Fran. Please remember to like the video, to leave comments, which is a good way we can find out how you're finding it. And of course, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe. Good to see you guys. Speak to you all again soon.